On this episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone, we're going to talk about this past Wednesday Night War between AEW and NXT with championships on the line. Certain storylines are fitting, and very interesting turning events is going to take place within their own promotion. So, let's get started with another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up. 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 Get up, get up.
Hey everyone, this is J-Rod here. Welcome to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things pro wrestling, such as AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact, NWA, and many promotions around with matches, championships, individual wrestlers, you name it. So this week's Wednesday Night War was very interesting. As you all recall last week on the recent ratings and views that took place, they had a little dip from both shows. But it appears that both shows are now doing better, even though they haven't reached the million mark, but they're doing pretty well. So let's talk about that just a little bit on that. AEW Dynamite received about 772,000 views with the rate of 0.28. NXT, on the other hand, had 746,000 views with the rate of 0.20. So I have to say it's not bad. I mean, there are some certain matches that were great, storylines that were going, but I'm excited that both shows are actually throwing everything as to give us a good show. As the Square Circle Psychobabble would say, at the end of this day, the fans always win and they're always right. So let's start with AEW Dynamite. Alright, so AEW had an interesting show. It started out with a tag team championship match between the Natural Nightmares against the current champions, Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. Now, it's kind of unusual to see that, but it happened. But I'm not gonna hold it against, realizing it was a good match between them, and I love what they did. It was pretty much interesting. When it started out, we didn't see Allie there. We only saw Brandy is always by her side. I know that Brandy and Allie had their issues over the past since this whole love interest story between both QT Marshall and Allie started to take place. But it was a good match. I know both teams were throwing everything they got, and I was like pretty much happy with the results, how it turned out. But in the end, I have to say the Natural Nightmares do deserve another opportunity down the line. I know that them being a good tag team is something that has been a prioritized within the wrestling world, because we do know that the AEW has the current stack tag team division in the entire world, but we can say that. So Kenny and Hangman actually won this match. So we are going to see Hangman and Kenny Omega face the Best Friends at Fyter Fest in July. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. So let's move on. The next match was Anna Joy and versus Abaddon. As you don't know, she's this creepy girl who made her appearance on AEW Dark, kind of like a little much eviler version of Su Yung. It was rather interesting how this match turned out. Anna Jay had no clue how to handle it. It was crazy. I know Hikaru Shida faced her in AEW Dark, and Abaddon actually won the match. But the interesting part after this match was the all of a sudden appearance of the Dark Order. They show up. Mr. Brody Lee gave instructions to Uno and Grayson to give an envelope to Colt Cabana. As y'all recall last week, Colt Cabana went to see Mr. Brody Lee. But that's not the interesting part that happens. The other members of the Dark Order, Silver and Reynolds, they actually picked up Anna Jay, and of course it appears that now the Dark Order has a female in their ranks. That's, I think, a common thing that many factions need to have, like a women's in a faction. That's something me and Nico talked about before, with the Undisputed Era, but that'll be another discussion some other time. The way this turns out, it was kind of interesting. I have to say, Anna Jay being in Dark Order, it would be an interesting story how they're going to introduce it. Now, after this, it's been revealed through Twitter, Abaddon is now a full-time member of the AEW roster. So we are going to see her most likely all the time. So this is going to be interesting. So if you guys don't want to be around her, stay away from her. Now, the next thing we have is MJF along with Wardlow versus Billy Gunn. He's being accompanied by his two sons, Austin and Colton. This feud happened a week ago where Tony Schiavone was talking to Billy Gunn in an interview, but MJF, who had to stick his nose where it didn't belong, tried to talk about himself as always, saying that he's the face of AEW and all this and that. So it practically became a feud. And there were some good moments that Billy was still showing who she is, and I mean who he is, and it was like crazy. But of course, you had to watch out for Wardlow because we know what he's capable of. Colton wasn't there, you guys are wondering. He just took off the back. The only person who's right there was Austin, who was the actual wrestler. I don't think Colton is a wrestler or he's in training. I'm not sure. I gotta know more about that info. But a result of it, as suspected, MJF won the match thanks to Wardlow's assistance with the diamond ring. Now, as soon as this happened, Jungle Boy still wants to get in his face. He hasn't forgotten what happened in Double or Nothing, where he sucker punched him with the diamond ring. And of course, and I think this is one thing that we should have watched right from the start. Luchasaurus versus Wardlow. This is something that has been eluding us for a long time. How many of you guys want to see that? Nico and I have talked about this, but I would love to see Luchasaurus and Wardlow face off. And now it's been confirmed. Next week, Luchasaurus and Wardlow are going to face off in what it's called a lumberjack match. So we're all ready for that for next week. So let's move on with this. Now we have an interview with the Sex Gods where Chris Jericho is giving his little statement about what he did last week. That he did not appreciate Orange Cassidy a couple weeks ago, like the days after Double or Nothing, where he got interrupted by him, and they decided to teach him a lesson by almost costing him an opportunity of that Battle Royal for the TNT number one contendership for that. But apparently the feud is gonna go on. He said he's happy and he can't wait to take the number one contendership spot that's currently held by the Best Friends. So this is more like the Inner Circle are still trying to prove their dominance. So that's where it's gonna be. Now we do see the next thing where Tony was talking to Britt. Even though she's injured, he wanted to get her insight about Hikaru Shida and the whole thing with Penelope before. But of course, as always, Britt Baker still talks about herself as always, saying she's a role model. The way it goes, she can't do nothing, and she put Tony Schiavone, one of her best friends, on timeout. But as soon as she tried to leave, apparently Rebel wasn't there. It was Big Swole. And she said the words that kind of like what Undertaker said, and then Matt Jackson says, "Where to, doctor?" And they just took off. We don't know what happened. We haven't seen after what happened when Big Swole hijacked her in her Rolls Royce. It was so funny. I enjoyed it. It was one of the best funny moments in my life to watch. Now, the next match is the TNT Championship. Now, Cody, before he started, he talks about certain events that took place regarding him, that is he still with the Elite, in the Elite? We haven't seen him being involved for a while. And the last time we saw them was months ago when Matt Hardy first appeared at the end of a Dynamite episode. And then he talks about the Nightmare family and basically what's going on. There's been more this and that. So it's still unclear what's going on. But he didn't let that stop him knowing what he had to do. As you all know, he's been putting the TNT Championship on the line every week, being a fighting championship, where he is trying to legitimize the title. It's something that many can say about that with WWE when it came with the women's tag team championship. So, but this one was interesting. But the real question is, we do know he gave Jake Hager an opportunity for the title at Fyter Fest. But who is he facing this week? And to my surprise, his opponent of the night was none other than Ricky Starks. Yes, Ricky Starks. We seen him in NWA. It turns out he was a free agent. And now it's been revealed on Twitter. He is now All Elite. Now, I will talk about that some other time. And hopefully I can get Nico's insight on this, because I would like to have what he has to say. So, but the match was great. I'm not going to lie. Cody was putting a lot of effort to ensure he can win this match. And throughout the entire match, Jake Hager was scouting from the back, watching on a monitor, trying to see what he can learn from this, because he wants a championship into the inner circle. So that's something we do, but we'll just wait and see. So if Ricky Starks would have won, it would have been Ricky Starks versus Jake Hager. But it ended with Cody applying the crossroads to Ricky Starks, winning the match. And of course, at the end of the match, Cody gave his respects to Ricky. But like I said, Ricky is now a AEW full-time member. It's been revealed, and a lot of people are happy. I still don't know what was the reason of him leaving NWA. I can only speculate, maybe because NWA has been suspending operations. They've only been doing Carneyland and all this stuff. I'm assuming he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to wait for who knows how long these guys will get back into operations. That's something that it's still unclear for all of us. So let's move on from that, okay? The next thing we have was Taz explaining the actions of what happened last week, where Mox was out throwing a fit and he took him out. Taz took him. I mean, Brian Cage took him out. Basically, got tired of Mox blabbering away like always, and he was tired of it. So it's kind of crazy how it turned out, but it is what it is. But we just gotta wait till Fyter Fest when we get there. So the next thing we have is Rebel. Well, she found Britt, and turns out that Britt Swole left her in the garbage dump, garbage dump that was nearby, and she fired Rebel. Then she rehired her, even though she's been gone for an hour. She made it look like it was 5 hours and 6 hours, and she's like, "Get Tony over here," but you told him you're on timeout. Tell him we're on timeout. I thought it was so crazy how it become great. I'm so happy how this entire message showed up. And then we have Matt Hardy going to the commentary section, where he talks about Sammy Guevara. Now, the match that he was commentating was for the #1 contendership spot between the Best Friends against Inner Circle's Le Sex Gods of Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. And Matt Hardy was like saying that he sees Sammy, he's talented, but he needs to get away from Chris Jericho, and Sammy let his cockiness get the best of him. It was a good match. It was like effortless, that Chris Jericho would do whatever it takes to ensure that they become the most dominant force. They haven't been that dominant ever since they lost to the Elite. And of course, he brought his bat, Floyd. Kind of nuts how it turns out. So it was. Then the moment when we all thought, okay, Sammy accidentally got himself caught with the camera wires thanks to the camera guy, and it resulted of course, losing the match to the Best Friends. But what we didn't realize, that was no ordinary cameraman. That was Orange Cassidy getting retribution for what Chris Jericho did to him a week ago. And that's gonna be, it was so insane. He kept chasing him. And of course, it ended where he puts on his little denim jacket and his sunglasses and a best friend's hug. But afterwards, at the end of the event, it's now confirmed Chris Jericho will be facing Orange Cassidy at Fyter Fest. Now that match, it's gonna be blown away, lit on fire. I love how this was gonna go. Now, whoever said Orange Cassidy is boring, read my lips. Go screw yourselves. And those who believe in Orange Cassidy, welcome to the club. So I think that's it right now with AEW Dynamite. We're gonna continue on with the NXT, and I'm gonna give you guys some news updates that came my attention last night and to this morning. So let's get started with NXT right now. All right, welcome back, everybody. So let's talk about NXT. So it started out with the recap from last week, what happened with the whole thing with Santo Escobar behind the recent kidnappings, winning the title and all this, and of course many other things that took place. But let's start with the first match of the night. Much like AEW, they started out with the NXT Tag Team Championship match between Imperium, Aichner, and Barthel versus Breezango, who were part of the 2 weeks ago, were in fact in a #1 contendership match where they were going to win. Whoever wins between Undisputed Era and Lorcan and Birch versus the Mystery. It was so. As we all know how Imperium, those two come out. Breezango came out imitating Imperium. They were calling themselves Emporium. Of course, Imperium didn't take that too lightly because they go on with this whole thing. They need to respect the mat, their all that, but they're not letting these guys have a lot of fun, and that kind of feel like this is disrespect. And they have proven their dominance time and time again. You know, we've seen that. I have to say, Breezango has always proven that they're being more serious. I mean, it's okay to have a little fun, but there are times you gotta put on your game face and get serious. But Imperium thinks of them as a joke. At one point throughout the match, when what's his name, Tyler Breeze was out, here comes Indus Sher, part of the tag team group with Bevan's Enterprise. They were about to take out Tyler Breeze, but Danny Burch and Lorne Orkin showed up and defended them. And they're not going to tolerate these guys getting in the way to ruin a good tag team match. But of course, Imperium might have won, but this entire thing has become a tag team war zone. Now, we can agree that Indus Sher are a dominant team, but who's dominant between in them and Emporium? We have seen Emporium time and time again as the most dominant force ever. And then we have Danny Lorcan and Danny Burch, who are two guys of opposite sides of the country. One who's American, one who's British. They're actually understand each other. They're from the streets. They fight with all their lives. And then you got a fun team like Breezango. That is a good reason to have a tag team war zone. So basically, I don't know for this what's going to happen. I'm not sure if they're going to have a fatal four-way or start out with Indus Sher and Imperium teaming up and Orkin and Burch teaming up with Breezango. I don't know. But Lorcan and Burch were not going to let Indus Sher try to hurt Tyler Breeze. So that's how that night ended with it. And then we seen Al Velveteen Dream, where he talks about his involvement with Dexter Lumis. Now, we have seen time and time again, excuse me, Dexter Lumis, how do I say this, helping out Velveteen Dream, and Dream paid him back. You know, not once, but twice. Now, the moment he was explaining this whole thing between them, Dexter Lumis left them a drawing where he sees himself and Velveteen Dream being a tag team. But when he saw it, Velveteen Dream has no interest teaming with him. He considered himself like a solo act. But I don't think Dexter Lumis is going to find it offensive. I think Dexter Lumis is trying to tell him something. Even though that he's no longer in the running to gain the NXT champion as long as Adam Cole is champion. We just gotta wait and see where they're gonna go with it. So that's how it's gonna be. The next thing we have is Damian Priest versus Killian Dane. Now, even though he's lost against Finn Balor at Takeover in Your House, what was it? 2 weeks ago or last week. Anyway, but Damian Priest has been highly regarded by Triple H, giving a hell of a performance, a hell of a match. I have to agree with Triple H on this one because if you're familiarized with Damian Priest before going to WWE, he was known as Punishment Martinez, and that is kind of interesting to see. And of course, he faced off Killian Dane. It's pretty amazing how this match was. Of course, and at the end of the match, Damian Priest picked up the victory, and I do see him somewhere down the line getting the push he deserved. Do I think he could get a hands on the North American Championship or down the line the NXT Championship? So we'll just wait and see where we're gonna go. And then we have Robert Stone. During the commercial break, he was all drunk by the plexiglass. Killian Dane was there, and then slammed there. He just freaked out. It kind of thought it was a funny moment. I enjoyed it. But the next match of that became Xia Li versus Aaliyah. This feud of them has gone way too much. Aaliyah was seeing what Robert Stone is putting himself into, and Robert Stone has not been himself ever since he realized that Chelsea Green doesn't need it anymore, since she fired him. And Aaliyah was not impressing him enough. He tried to get his brand going, but Aaliyah is still interested in being with him, and I think Robert Stone was not giving her enough faith. But the one thing that ended the way this match was Robert Stone got in the way and he vomited right in the ring, and costing Xia Li the match because he distracted that. And of course, Robert Stone was happy, but he's still disoriented from the drinking. But I can tell this match between Aaliyah and Xia Li is far from over. So, and then we see a little video package with Timothy Thatcher training session where, as you all know, Timothy Thatcher is an expert in submission. That's like catch wrestling, that type of thing. I will do a discussion on that down the line in the future. But there's that he's showing people the techniques of arm submissions, how you submit them, all this. It's kind of interesting, but I'm still don't know yet if he's planning to do a faction of sorts. I'm still trying to understand that. And then we have the Undisputed Therapy. Roderick Strong is still having traumatized moments because of what happened to him, where he hasn't forgotten when he was locked up in the trunk thanks to Dexter Lumis. So Fish and Cole took him to a therapy. It resulted he wasn't an actual therapist. It was actually Kyle O'Reilly. So basically, he's still traumatized. I thought it was so funny. So Fish and Cole are still trying to fix him, but no luck. Now, they jump in after that with the interview with Cole, asking him about the hourglass that was left behind by Scarlett last week. It's still unclear why is this. Now, as for Cole, he's always proven that he is the most dominant champion ever, that no one will ever beat him, and he's confident to believe that Karrion Kross will fall just like the rest. But I would like to see him face Kross, but if he loses, then that's going to be an interesting story. But as soon as that happened, Lee still wants that title. So basically, it's becoming more of Cole has put himself as a target the entire time. First, it was Lee, then this, Kross, but now Lee actually destroyed the hourglass, saying that it's not going to be Kross to take him out. Then as soon as Cole left, he goes on the ring. He's getting tired of people coming after him. Here comes Lee. he admits that yes, you are the longest reigning champion, 381 days, so it should be 182 days now. Or 83, I'm not sure. Well, somewhere around there. I would just say 183, 80 plus, So anyway, and then when that happened, Johnny Gargano shows up. He still hasn't forgotten that he beat Keith Lee in that mixed tag team. And he of course, his reputation at him being the first ever Triple Crown champion has not gone out of his way, and that kind of thing. And then here comes Finn Balor, who hasn't forgotten that he was like the blueprint, what led to what NXT is. So basically, it's like everybody wants a piece of coal. And that's when William Regal shows up and give his announcement that it gave him an idea. That next week, he will book Keith Lee to put his North American Championship on the line against Johnny Gargano and Finn Balor. Whoever wins that match will face Adam Cole next month. Winner take all. This is going to be an interesting matchup because we don't know what to expect when it comes in. Now, when this is all over, Keith Lee was being interviewed. Candice LeRae found offensive what Keith Lee said to Johnny about how he's saying thank you for being a gentleman and getting into his head. But of course, Keith Lee told her, watch your back. Maya Lee was right there. Mia Yim was there waiting for her, and it appears that the rivalry is far from over as well. And we jump in with a women's match. It was Kaden Carter along with Casey Cantizano versus Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. Now, this happened a week ago where Dakota Kai faced Casey, and she lost the match. But Raquel and Dakota decided to send a beater, but Kaden Carter came out to her defense, and it was still too much. Kaden Carter had everything under control, but no one can stop Raquel Gonzalez tried to stop it, and that kind of ended in a way where that Dakota Kai will still win. We still don't know what's gonna happen then. I'm predicting that probably Dakota Kai will get a championship match, but it's still unclear when that's gonna happen. But the rivalry between Kai and Gonzalez, along with Kaden Carter and Cantizano, is not over just yet. Then we see a little clip of the hourglass that was destroyed by Keith Lee, and here comes Scarlett and Karrion Kross. Now, I think the feeling is that maybe this is coming to an end for Adam Cole to get his hand, that he may lose the title, but even though he believes that he will remain as always, that Karrion Kross is just like everyone else who loses to him. And of course, we jump in with a little video package where we talk about Mercedes Martinez, who's one of the recent signees. We haven't seen her for quite some time. And of course, it's going to be announced that she's coming soon. I'm excited to see her. I know you guys are excited to see her. The last time I saw her, she made a brief appearance, but officially as a wrestler, she did make an appearance at All Out for the women's casino battle royale that took place with AEW. But that's a different story to put out. Now, the next match we had is Bronson Reed versus Leon Ruff. Let's just call it a squash match because it was an easy match. As soon as the match was over, who won by Bronson Reed? Bronson Reed made a decision that he is calling out Karrion Kross. He hasn't forgotten what happened the last time. Bronson Reed was in a match and he got taken out by Karrion Kross. So he's going to take him out himself. Now, as soon as he was leaving, he decided to carry Ruff to the back, being a good person that he is. He's not like Karrion Kross. He wants to prove that time and time again. So it's kind of interesting. Now, it jumps in, and as soon as that happened, they jump into the parking lot where someone slash Priest's tires. It's still unclear who it was. And then as soon as he was pissed, here comes Cameron Grimes, how to say, making fun of him, and Priest was not having it, and that kind of became an interesting feud. And it's already been confirmed. Next week, those two will face off. So the next thing we see is Santos Escobar, formerly known as Hijo del Fantasma, along with his cohorts Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Phoenix, calling themselves the Legion of the Phantom, basically naming himself as a leader. And of course, Drake Maverick, who we all saw 2 weeks ago, made one hell of a match. But at the same time, a week ago, the whole thing was a dupe by Santos, who did everything possible to ensure he gets his title and all this other stuff. And Drake ended up injured thanks to Santos. Jake Atlas was right there too, and he was like saying that they're gonna get him. I would like to see Jake Atlas and Drake Maverick team up, but also have someone else. My pick to join them in those little three-way feud, 3-on-3 feud, is Kushida. Because the reason I say that is because this kidnapping coincides when Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza face off against Kushida. But I would like to see that. Now we go to the women's, the main event, which was the women's tag team match between Shotzi Blackheart and Tegan Nox versus the current women's tag team champions, Bayley and Sasha Banks. Now, if you all had forgotten, Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai were in a match for this, and they put a hell of an effort. I enjoyed it. This match turned out great. I enjoyed it. I feel like they need to legitimize more of this. This is something that Bayley and Sasha talked about a year ago or two, and they should just legitimize these titles more. But it was great. I'm just gonna skip ahead. Bayley pulled out the shirt, but Tegan Nox took it out of her hand, and she tried, and then all of a sudden, Bayley was able to flip over Shotzi Blackheart and give Sasha Banks the idea of putting her in a submission, and resulted of winning the match. Now, as soon as they were celebrating, they got a little visit from the NXT Women's Champion, Io Shirai. So I think she's sending a message to them that you're in her house, and I'm kind of interesting to see where they're gonna go with this. Is she gonna face off against Bayley? You may never know. But for now, let's just wait what's gonna happen next week, and then from then on, we'll just speculate more. So right now, let's move on to the news updates of today. Alright everyone, so let's do the news updates. This was announced back in Wednesday, or I think Wednesday UK time. It was announced that OTT Wrestling, Rev Pro, TNT Extreme Wrestling, and some other promotion down in UK have announced that they're no longer booking David Starr, who was also their champion from all of these promotions that he was in. Reason is that it's been announced that sexual allegations against him by a woman who calls herself Tori, but they're calling her Victoria, saying that David Starr, he's in fact a sexual predator. David Starr made no efforts and tried to deny it, but he has been like referencing himself, saying on Twitter that he's not perfect, that he's not a sexual predator, but he is a dickhead, that he's a failure in having partners and all this other stuff. Because of this, it resulted of him losing all these bookings from promotions, and it's still unclear if there's any promotions that it would be interesting to have him there. But he did stated that if this is the end of his wrestling career, he's okay with it. So he is not denying what's happened, but he is clarifying himself that he is a dickhead. That's what he says on his Twitter. Now, I don't like to judge people, but there are those who are saying they want this to be proven or otherwise. Um, I still don't know what is the circumstances, how this is going to be. As you all recall, not too long ago, David Starr was no longer being booked for WXW promotion out of Germany due to the fact that they had ties towards WWE. As you recall, a year ago, David Starr stomped on the WWE United Kingdom Championship that was currently held by Walter, and Evolve stopped booking him, so did Progress, and then So that was a different circumstances. So I don't know what's gonna happen with David Starr, but I hope he'll be okay. And I don't know what's the result of his company, We the Independent, where they're helping independent wrestlers, how they're being booked and all this other stuff. I know what's gonna, still don't know about that, what's gonna happen, but I will keep track and see what's gonna happen. In other news, it's been revealed now by Pro Wrestling Sheet that's been revealed that what was it? Access TV and the Women of Wrestling, WOW, are no longer working together. Reason is Access TV made it clear that they want to focus their attention towards Impact Wrestling. So, as you all know, the parent company that owns Impact Wrestling, Global Anthem Sports, whatever, currently owns a majority shareholder with Access TV. So that's pretty much one of the cases that happened. If you all recall, not too long ago, New Japan were showing many of their U.S. shows here on on their network, but it appears that Impact really wanted to work with New Japan, but New Japan weren't having that because they had some issues that they had with them in the past. As for the women wrestling, we still haven't heard anything, but they are discussing right now what is their next way to do distribution of the show. I know that they felt like they should have a television show to display their network. Uh, I became a fan myself. I'm not gonna lie about that. I'm not going to, how do I say this, deny. I enjoy every match that they have, everything that they put out. Um, but yeah, I'm still waiting on what they're gonna say. What else I should mention? But yeah, I think that's about it. That's with these news updates and everything else. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, me talking about AEW and NXT on the Wednesday Night War, and of course these news updates that I throw on for all of you. So I think that's it for now. So I must bid all of you adieu. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day. Bang.